Hey everybody, it's Dr. Sara Gottfried. Welcome to the Health Bridge, and I am here with Dr. Pedram Shojai. Hey Pedram.
Hi Sarah, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I'm so excited because we're talking about anxiety today. I feel like anxiety is another elephant in the room that is holding us back from greatness. Can we start first, Pedram, with the definition? How do you think about anxiety? What is it?
Yeah, I have a pretty general term for how I do it with patients, right? And so when someone comes in, my question to them really is, are you able to sit in this moment and be at peace? Or is there some sort of baseline sense of unease that's driving you to feel like you need to be somewhere, do something? Are you edgy? Are you just not feeling comfortable under your own skin? And I would take even a subtle version of that and call that anxiety, all the way up to kind of full-blown panic attacks and like stuff that derails you from life. But I think that they're one and the same phenomenon, and it's just an amplification depending on, first of all, how long you weren't listening to the canaries in the coal mine, and secondly, how much of your biochemistry and neurochemistry got shifted after years of kind of not being in that center point of peace and ease.
Okay, that's so good. Thank you so much for that definition. I feel like we just tagged probably most of our listeners, because anyone who runs around with some of that free-floating anxiety or distress, who's not in the now, is anxious in that definition. Now, there's a broad spectrum, of course. And it's funny, Pedram, I don't actually identify with the word anxiety. Like, I don't think of myself as being anxious, but it shows up in a lot of sneaky ways, right? Like for some people, it shows up as overwhelm, or it shows up as, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, or I can't make a decision. Do you have any sneaky ways that it shows up in your practice?
Well, yeah, God, it shows up in my mind. I mean, I have to kind of qualify this by saying, I'm a meditator, right? And so my training is always scanning my consciousness and establishing whether or not I'm maintaining my equanimity, whether I'm in that center of balance, or whether something is knocking me off my perch, right? And always kind of coming back to center. And so for me, I guess you would call me kind of a lot more strict. I'd have much more strict criteria for that. But I think it's the human condition, right? And so all the time, I mean, we'll kind of get into some of our 5 hacks on this in this show here, but all the time, I think that anytime you move away from peace, which is kind of your birthright, then you're in some version of anxiety. You're in some place of dis-ease. And whether it's, oh my God, I got to pick the kid up from class and all these cars got in my way, to, where am I going with my life, or what's happening with my marriage, I think there's an element of anxiety that pops into all of it.
Yes, very true. Very true. And I think those of us who have made these choices to bring the alchemical into our life, or the metaphysical, many of us did it because, we had challenges being in the present moment. That was certainly the case for me when I became a yoga teacher. And at some point, I'm going to get you to tell your story about your mystical experiences, but maybe not today, because I want to make sure we get through these hacks, because they're so helpful. So hack number 1, what do you got for us, Pedram?
Well, I always, when someone comes in talking about anxiety, I always look at blood sugar, right? It's whether or not your body is simply freaking out because specifically your brain is saying, dude, I need food. Now, there's a lot of schools of thought, and there's ways to keep your blood sugar stable. I mean, kind of one of the traditional ways is just to snack every 3 hours and keep glucose going to the brain. There's, kind of arguable ways of, say, fat burning and ketones feeding the brain, all kinds of stuff that people are talking about there, and we're not going to dive into that right now. But the brain is kind of the general, right? And the brain is constantly calling the shots, and the brain needs energy, right? And when it doesn't have what it needs to run the show, it's like a showstopper. It's like, go get me some sugar, some energy, some ketones, whatever. You got to put coal in the engine for this train to keep going, dummy, right? And a lot of times we disregard that. We're like, well, I'm busy with this spreadsheet. Obviously, I'm at the game. I don't have time for that, or whatever it is. And we kind of override it. And then when we override it, then that's when this kind of baseline anxiety starts to boot up. And a lot of times, just balancing blood sugar and sorting that out for people and making sure that they're keeping their brain and their neurochemistry running gets rid of a lot of that anxiety. And that's just kind of been my clinical experience of it.
Oh, I really appreciate that. So, dude, I need food. That's number one. Stabilize your blood sugar and clean protein. I mean, nothing works like clean protein to stabilize your blood sugar. I think that is such a juicy one. And I'm going to kind of link along here for number two, hack number two, and say, here's what happens when you drink a cup of coffee. Here's Sarah's brain on a cup of coffee, regular coffee. I had a cup of coffee yesterday and I did not fall asleep until about 2 o'clock in the morning. What happens when I have a cup of coffee, because I'm a slow metabolizer of caffeine in my liver, I know this genetically, I feel like a rock star for about 15 to 20 minutes after I have that cup of coffee. I feel so smart. I feel so creative. My epinephrine is going up, my adrenaline. And then something happens that one of my mentors, Brendan Bouchard, calls the cortisol switch, where cortisol goes up and adrenaline, epinephrine starts to come down. And that's where you get jittery and anxious and you just have this free-floating anxiety. And I had that most of the day yesterday. I should know better. But hack number two is that if you're an anxious person, stop drinking caffeine, stop drinking the coffee, stop taking those things into your body that are raising cortisol and causing you to feel anxious. I love that we're starting with the biology because I think our listeners know it's east meets west meets best, and we're going to get to those, alchemical ways of dealing with this too.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely important. You can't talk about life without talking about biology. And I think that a lot of the people that are all esoteric and all just kind of up in the clouds miss the fact that, I don't care how good of a meditator you're trying to be, if you're not taking care of your physiology, it's going to be real tough, right? And so I love the approach that we have with that, not to, toot our horns, but it's just, I love this dialogue because it's a healthy one that needs to happen between East and West. And I think it's overdue, and I'm so stoked that we're doing this together because I love, this is what medicine needs, right? This kind of meet in the middle approach. So I want to.
So true. Although I have to say, my husband, who's such a huge fan of yours, says, "Wait, why are you calling it East meets West meets best? It's more like left meets far left. It's not exactly the middle." So whatever, we'll own that too, and we welcome your comments and feedback, especially about future topics. But back to our anxiety hacks.
Love it. I need to drop a Pedram metaphor on number two here, just because I think we'd be remiss not to. This is an example I use all the time when it comes to caffeine. Think of it like going to the store, seeing something you can't afford, and saying, "Screw it, I'm going to charge it on my card." Right? So at first you have this instant gratification. You're like, woohoo, I got the purse, or I got this, I got that. Look how happy I am. And then the bill arrives. And I think that's when, the cortisol switch happens in your metaphor. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? And then the reality sets in. So if you can't afford it, don't buy it. And I think that's where caffeine really comes in. I think it's deficit spending, and it's an unhealthy way of throttling. It's an unhealthy way of running an economy. And your body has an energy economy. And if you could run a clean house, then you're kind of flowing and grooving all day, and you're in abundance. But if you're just, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, that leads to all kinds of kind of biological deficits that lead to what can be interpreted by the mind as anxiety. And again, we go back to blood sugar instability and all these types of things that we see clinically. And, once you sort out a couple of these things physiologically, people are already like 60% better, right? They don't need to go reading Tony Robbins for 20 years. It's and not that I don't want to diss Tony. Tony's awesome, right? But I think people kind of jump over this and go to all this self-help stuff. And you and I have been in the self-help world for years. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of value, but eat lunch, dude, right? just get
Dude,
yourself.
eat your food. I love this. And you're right. So many folks feel like they have a moral failing and that's why they're anxious, or they can't get it together psychologically or emotionally. And the point we're making here is, darling, start with your biology. Like, let's get some basic things in place where you're not taking out a high interest loan against your energy economy of the body. I love that one, Pedram.
Thank you. That's something I stumbled on that metaphor because I came back from the Himalayas talking woo-woo and then had to kind of translate that down for patients in Southern California. And once you start talking about things that people can understand in language they can understand it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I got it. I don't need you to chant that. I just need you to understand that your burn rate is killing you. It's tanking your company, right? And that's just bad math. So I'll jump on the next one. Is for me, I'm a big advocate of understanding time management in life.
Amen.
Time management is effectively event management, and it's a term I coined called time compression syndrome. Is when you put too many items into an allotted amount of time. And you basically, like, if I had one thing to do today, and that's to go to the grocery store, I'm probably not too stressed out. If I have 65 things on a to-do list and I have no freaking idea how I'm going to get to all that, all of a sudden that time compression makes my shoulders come up and I have this baseline anxiety of being like, how the hell am I going to get through today? Right? And so a lot of that just happens at the prefrontal cortex, right? And so this kind of goes back to number 1 and 2 is if you get enough sugar to the brain, if you get enough fuel to the brain, you're actually fueling beyond your animal survival brain up to the human brain, which makes these better decisions. And so you start to say no to things and be like, yeah, I would love to do that, but I can't because I got all these other things I committed to. And I'm, trying not to be an idiot in life. And we're all idiots in life in a lot of ways, right? Because we say yes to too many things. And in the esoteric realm of learning to evolve, there's an axiom that says mastery of life is in learning to say no. Right? And the more you say no to things in life, the more you're actually saying yes to the things that you've chosen in life. So that's a big part of time management for me. And I think it's a critical element that we, in our life of inundation with, media and phone calls and texts and all these things, is every time I look down at my phone to look at my email, I'm saying yes to that, whatever the heck that is, and no to the thing that I was supposed to be doing in that moment, which would have gotten me through my to-do list, which would have made me feel so much better about having closed out what I wanted to do today. So at night, I don't feel like, oh my God, it's dark and now I got to hang out with honey and, put the kid to bed or whatever it is, and I didn't get all these things done, so now I can't sleep because I got all this crap on my mind.
Right on. I so love this one, and I love that you're starting to move a little more left. Thank you, sir. It reminds me. I can tell you, you made me think of this point in my life where I was in my medical training. I went to this place in Boston. I went through 5 years of medical school because I did an honors thesis for a year. And when I did my first medicine rotation, where I was, on the internal medicine wards, I had my first experience of needing to be in 2 places at once or needing to be in 3 places at once. Like I would have a patient who had something urgent in the emergency room, and I'd have a patient who had something serious happening up in the ward. And that was my first experience of anxiety. And it's what you're describing, where, in that case, it was very hard to manage the events, but it also creates this set point that kind of makes me used to cramming my schedule so tight that I don't allow enough time to get from point A to point B, and I'm not realistic about how much time it will take. Another point I want to give to the ladies, because I think in some ways men are better at saying no and better at kind of holding this boundary with time management. I got this tip from a good friend of mine who's a therapist, and she said, if you have a hard time saying no, if you have a hard time realizing that no is a complete sentence, you could say probably not. And so she coached me on this. She said, okay, the next time they ask you to volunteer, to be the chair of the gala at the school, and you're thinking there's no way I want to do that, you say probably not, pause, but let me think about it. So another little add-on to your third hack. I totally love that one. Now I'm going to go deep yoga teacher on you. And, you know, I had this sweet experience last weekend where I have two daughters, as you know, and my 14-year-old was arguing with me about something. I think she wanted to buy something online and I wasn't letting her do it. And the 9-year-old was trying to manage her experience of this conflict, and she was having some anxiety. And she said to me, "Mom, I'm sitting here and I'm doing balloon breaths. Do you want to do balloon breaths with me?" And it was so piercing and so sweet, because this 9-year-old, you know, she's never meditated. She used to crawl all over me doing yoga, but it's not really her thing. And so we sat in my bed, you know, really lengthened our spine, and she said, "Okay, here's what you do. You put one hand above your belly button and you put your other hand below your belly button, and you take a breath in and you let your belly expand, and then you exhale and you let your belly go back. And you do it 5 times, Mom. You want to do it with me?" And so we did this breathing, and it was just such a sweet way to get back into the now, back into the present moment, without, you know, letting this drama with my 14-year-old spin myself out of control. And, you know, and then that doesn't work very well from a parenting perspective. So this way of getting back into the present moment, of finding your way back with the breath, is such a great antidote to anxiety. And for those, you know, there's some folks with anxiety, I've been teaching yoga a long time, who have a hard time tuning into their breath. And one trick there is to really notice the air moving past through your nose, to like take that micro focus, you know, just kind of feel the air moving, you know, the hairs of your nose. And that micro focus helps you get so into the now.
I want to first and foremost say I need to give you some props as a mom for having that thing happen right there. Really, that's amazing, because you put so much time, energy, and love into bringing a child up right, and then all of a sudden they become this teacher, right? And they bring back what you need to hear in that moment, and they're kind of reflecting goodness back to you. So that's such a wonderful experience, and I want to commend you on having watered that delightful plant for, you know, the 9 years to have kind of given that fruit, and I think that's just really awesome. So congratulations on, you know, doing that right.
Thanks, Pedram. Well, our kids are our best mirrors, and I can't wait for you to have a mirror here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that mirror's coming. That mirror's coming, man, and we're excited for that. I want to jump in a little bit more on that, just because I'm such a fan of this technique. You guys, when you do deep lower diaphragmatic breathing, it pops in the clutch and shifts from the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, get me out of this, oh my God, the walls are collapsing in, how am I going to get through today, panic, panic, frame of mind, to right? That place where you can kind of heal and nourish and feed the organs and kind of set things and set the tone. And it's a hack, right? You are either, it's a switch, it's I or O, right? You're either one way or the other. And so if you can train your nervous system to keep going back to parasympathetic, what happens is the rest and digest channel starts to take prominence, and you start getting better and better at it. And I know a lot of people that are like, well, I tried meditating and I couldn't. I said, well, I tried, flying a jet plane and I sucked at it, right? It takes years of practice sometimes. And we'll introduce, maybe we should do a whole show on meditation hacks, teaching people how to drop in quicker, more effectively, and really kind of get there in the modern world. But this stuff is so incredibly powerful that people tend to be a little dismissive of it. And I want you to jump in, because you're such the Harvard genius, medical doctor extraordinaire, and talk about how effective this stuff actually is in comparison to some of these silly drugs that people are taking, because they've been it's been misrepresented, right? And I want to show people that there are natural ways to do this without, and we're not suggesting just dumping off all your drugs and stuff, but this is an amazing way of kind of getting into a healthier state of mind.
Oh, yes. Such a good point. And You're right. I mean, I want to ask our listeners, do you want to hear top 5 hacks when it comes to meditation? Because that would be a really fun conversation. I'll just list off a couple of amazing things about meditation because we're talking here quite a bit about the hormone cortisol. It's that stress hormone. It's the thing that just kind of hijacks us out of the present moment. And we know that meditation, first and foremost, lowers your cortisol levels. It raises your serotonin, that happy brain chemical that is in charge of mood, sleep, appetite. It's a gatekeeper in your brain. We also know that it changes your brain physically. So your cortical thickness increases when you meditate. It also changes, just the density of your brain, the gray matter and white matter. So there are physical changes that happen with meditation. I think we need to sex that up when we do another call on this. The other point that I wanted to make, because you and I talked about Dean Ornish and some of his work on meditation, we know that it changes your gene expression. Now, there aren't drugs out there that change your gene expression for the better, but meditation does. In fact, if I'm remembering this correctly from his study on prostate cancer, I think it changed 500 genes for the better. It turned off the bad genes, it turned on the good genes when it came to this collection of men with prostate cancer. Do you remember that one, Pedram?
I do. I don't know. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember looking at that and nodding, going right on. It's exciting having been a meditator and been on kind of that side of the fence for so long, having all this incredible vindication coming in the form of studies from people that are, just legitimately chiming in and being like, oh no, this is a thing. Right, we were looking at the density, the density of the prefrontal cortex on meditators, and looking at functional MRI studies, and saying, after 6 weeks of meditation, all of a sudden you have this huge kind of significance. I think it was 10%. Don't quote me on this, but 10% increase in cortical density of your prefrontal cortex for meditating alone in 6 weeks. And the reason that sounds kind of geeky, guys, but think of it this way. What separates us from the monkeys, what separates us from the animal brain is the prefrontal cortex, and and this is my tie-in here, and that's the part of the brain that is specifically in charge of negation of impulses and higher moral reasoning. Right? When we're talking about negation of impulses, we're talking about the no and the probably not, and the ability to manage your time, and the ability to not eat the Twinkie or the ding dong or the muffin or whatever it is that you're trying to resist. So you're increasing the part of your brain, you're giving juice to the part of your brain that will get you to stop making the dumb decisions and get you to be more self-aware and powerful in that capacity. But it's also turning on genes that are helping you become healthier and more robust. It's like, oh right, now I'm back on this trajectory of life, and as I kind of step into where life wanted me to go in this evolutionary cycle, life is now rewarding me by making me healthier and more robust and giving me more energy to cruise through and be a master at life. It's just, and that's a whole other show, but like that's the stuff that just makes me so excited.
Yes. And that's why I'm so honored to be your friend. You're just totally the coolest. Okay, hack number 5, sir. What do you got for us, Pedram?
Yeah, I would say that hack number 5 for me is, now we're kind of getting into life management, because a lot of people are living life as if they're out there in the middle of the ocean, sails are out and the winds are blowing them everywhere, and they're wondering why they're seasick, and they're wondering why they're not getting anywhere. And that to me is also a deep cause of anxiety. Right? If you don't have direction, if you're not plotting your course, if you're not saying yes to a certain trajectory in life, then every email that comes in, every new friend that comes in, every silly circumstance that comes in dictates where you're going. You're just getting blown around. And so a lot of people just don't have life kind of dialed in to saying, look, this is where I want to go. I'm in this stupid career right now that I don't like with these toxic people, so I'm studying this at night, and this is where I'm headed with it, and I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm adapting, and I have a plan to move forward. And so they become planless. And I think I mentioned this in another show, but I'm good at repeating myself. Is we had a buddy that just came in and he was drinking a lot of coffee. And Dr. Yang, Mike Yang, was like, dude, why are you drinking so much coffee? He says, man, you've got a career. I've got a job. Guys with jobs drink coffee all day to get through.
I remember this.
Right, and it was just so powerful for me. It was like, yeah, because you're just trying to stumble through your day because you are parked in a parking structure where the view sucks and you're just stuck there all day instead of driving your car on the road of life. And so that to me is huge. So you really got to kind of step into that and get into stride. And then that baseline anxiety of like time withering and wasting away starts to go away because you're like, wow, what an awesome year. I mean, we are now rounding out the first quarter of 2014, and it's been like this wonderful ride because I'm in stride in life and I'm excited about everything that's happening. But it was a series of good decisions and decisions to say no to things in life that would get in the way of those good decisions to open up the opportunity to be able to be on this journey.
Okay, I'm not sure which one's my favorite, but that one, I just really adore it. And I think you again tagged so many of our listeners today, you know, just as you were describing Michael Yang's words and the guy who replied to him and said, you know, you have a career, I have a job. That's why I'm drinking so much coffee. We self-medicate when we're not happy with that life design. You could fill in the blank. You know, maybe it's that you drink too much alcohol, and oh, by the way, when you withdraw from alcohol the next day, it gives you anxiety. It raises your cortisol levels. So I think this is such a good point. You also, I wanted to circle back to your first hack. You know, you were talking about sugar for the brain, and I just wanted to make sure our listeners understand we're not talking about sugar, like not the crack type of sugar. We're talking about glucose. We're talking about slow carbohydrates, the protein, the sweet potatoes, the yucca, the taro, things like that.
Yeah, sugar itself, and you guys go back and listen to past radio shows if you're confused about that, because we kind of, you know, the sugar is crack argument is out there and it's strong. We're going to have Mark Hyman on in a little bit talking about it, but sugar itself is the devil. I mean, it's causing all kinds of health crises. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about slow carbs, good carbs, and specifically breaking proteins into that. And what we could get into that. If that's somewhere where you guys want us to go, we'll do a whole show on it. But it's fuel for the brain that we're talking about. We're not talking about having Jolly Ranchers or Twizzlers, because that's what we're recommending. And yeah, thank you for that. Because people take things so literally, and we got to be real careful. Because, you know, this isn't about medical advice. This is about life advice. And then you kind of put that into the filter of what you know in life and then start making sense of it. But this isn't about Sara and I telling you what to do. It's about Sara and I teaching you to wake up to what's up, right? And then you start making better decisions for yourself, which again comes at the prefrontal cortex, and that's a whole show I'd love to do. So I know we're running out of time. Any last thoughts on this before we kind of tell people where to find us and all that?
Oh yeah, well, I want to have a quick sexy librarian moment where I do a recap. You know, I'm like chomping at the bit to do that. Anything you want to say before I have my sexy librarian moment about what doesn't work in your experience? I mean, we talked a bit about, you know, how the prescription pill bottle is really in severe situations that you want to go to that. They don't actually work that well. The Xanax and the Ativan and all those pills for anxiety, they don't work very well. What else, Pedram? What else doesn't work?
What doesn't work is doing what you've been doing and expecting different results.
That's the definition of insanity, I think, in the 12-step process.
Yeah, and people do that. People run with low-level anxiety to the point where it becomes this thing, and it just kind of adds and accumulates interest until that credit card debt is insurmountable, and then they're just they're in enthusiasm bankruptcy. Right, and I think that is really a place of demise, and I think that's where a lot of people live because life, life just sucks now, and they don't know how to get out. And so to me, that's just such a, oh my God, it's there's so many places we could go with that because life can be so awesome, and so the narrative that you believe is your life, the storefront that you think is you, needs to be changed if you are still in this place where you have all these excuses that are not serving you. Okay, so I'm definitely a fan of cognitive behavioral therapy and all these types of things, but I think that if you don't handle the baseline physiology and the life trajectory stuff, you're just going to be paying a therapist to talk for decades. And yeah, it helps. But, do you want to spend another decade kind of, treading water, or do you want to charge and kind of jump into life now with full passion and enthusiasm?
Fantastic. I'm so with you there. And I love that we focus on the solutions that really have worked for us and for, between us, we've got just decades of experience helping people with anxiety and these other issues that we're talking about. Here's what else doesn't work: over pathologizing. Like, just realize that you have an issue. Awareness is step number one. And then, start rocking these 5 hacks that we're sharing with you. Another one is avoiding it, like brushing it under the rug, or maybe the self-medicating that we were talking about with the coffee. And then, you got the upper in the morning and then your downer in the evening where you're drinking too much. Another one is kind of related to the point you just made, trying to architect your life so that you don't have any anxiety. I think that leads to the enthusiasm bankruptcy, that beautiful term that you just defined. So should I have my sexy librarian moment now?
Let's go, yeah.
All right, so here's the top 5 hacks, guys. And I'm going to try to use Pedram's language because it's so good. Number 1, blood sugar. Dude, I need food. Stabilize your blood sugar. If you don't get sugar to your brain, you're going to get anxious. Start with the protein, the slow carbs. Number 2, get off the coffee. And you had this beautiful metaphor, Pedram, about kind of the impulse spending. Your body has this energy economy, and we want to keep charging, not with fake sources like coffee, if you have anxiety. Number 3, time management, event management, time compression syndrome. And you said this beautiful point about how mastery in life is learning to say no. And I added on, probably not. Number 4, belly breathing, that lower belly breathing where you're moving your diaphragm, you're stimulating your vagus nerve, you're saying yes to your parasympathetic nervous system. We need to do that because anxiety happens in your sympathetic nervous system. Repair and healing happens in your parasympathetic nervous system. Number 5, life management. So just as you want to say no to those things that are making you anxious, you want to say yes to the things that crowd out the anxiety and make you super happy to be alive. So did I miss anything, Pedram?
I think you nailed it, as you are so good at doing. Guys, the only reason to say no is once you've established the yeses in your life, right? And so once you know what you want, you pick the 5 flowers that are going to be in your garden, then you can identify the weeds, right? But you got to think about what flowers you're going to plant in this garden of life, and then you give them life and you feed them with your attention and your energy and your love and your enthusiasm, and you will watch them grow. They will come back to you and mirror like your wonderful child story, and so it's, the more you get on this, the more the journey of life gets awesome. Guys, we are so stoked to be doing this. Please go into iTunes and give us comments about what else you would like to see, because it's important for us to know how to better serve you. Let's just tell you guys where to find us individually. We're building out a website for the show, and when that's ready, we'll tell you. Personally, I'm at well.org. Everything I do is at well.org. We got tons of goodies. Our free resource guide is awesome. Sign up, we'll send you stuff, and we just love doing what we do, because this, to me, is medicine. The Latin root, docere, is to teach. So the more we can be here and help you guys stay out of the emergency room, stay out of the pilfer and ill model, I think the greater we are at being of service as physicians in this new model of where health care lives. Sarah, how can people find you?
Well, I also want to add that we have a lot of fun, and I think that's essential to a life that's well lived. So say yes to the fun. Where do you find me right now? The best place to go is thehormonecurebook.com. We got a big party happening over there with the release of my latest book, thehormonecurebook.com.
Love it. Dr. Sara Gottfried, Dr. Pedram Shojai, The Health Bridge. We will see you guys next time. Thanks for being here, and we are so happy that this is something that we get to do and be of service for.